Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. We're glad that you all could be with us. Also, tuning in online worldwide, thanks to our friends at iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts. We're glad you all could be with us as well. Well, here in my home state of Mississippi, we have definitely been able to see the impact that COVID-19 has had here in the South, especially when it comes to the Delta variant. And this is something that is taking place literally around the country. We've been seeing the numbers increase, especially here in the Magnolia State. The unvaccinated have really been a part of that largely preventable flood of patients that's been heading into the hospitals. And some of those who are really feeling the brunt of this are those who are taking the lead, those being in critical care, especially when it comes to our nurses. There is a recent survey, though, that showed that when it comes to those who are taking the lead, when it comes to nurses, they really are not only fighting to save lives, but also are dealing with their own trauma from this as well. Here to talk to us about a recent survey, we're excited to welcome Amanda Bettencourt to our program. She's a president-elect of the organization, American Association of Critical Care Nurses. We also will talk about the message that all of us can be able to share with those around us as well. Amanda, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Cyrus. Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, the pleasure's definitely all mine. First of all, before we get into what's been happening around the country, but like I said, we felt it here in the South and Mississippi as well, let's talk about the organization. Tell us a little bit about the American Association of Critical Care Nurses and the work they do.
Yeah, the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, or AACN, is the largest specialty nursing organization in the world. We have over 120,000 members, and we represent the interests of the over 500,000 acute and critical care nurses in our country. And as you said, these are the nurses that have been taking care of some of the sickest patients from COVID, those that need ventilators and life support and high-tech, therapies in order to survive. And we've been doing that for the last 18 months on the front lines of the pandemic.
And when it comes to, I am the news director here for two of the stations here in Mississippi, and we've been sharing some of the stories from our larger hospitals here. What is AACN doing to make sure that the nurses' voices are being heard as we're dealing with the pandemic?
Yeah, so this is the first time we've directly talked as an organization or as a critical care nursing profession with the public, because we're seeing some very alarming trends among our members. And these are the nurses that have been on the front lines taking care of some of the sickest COVID patients over the last 18 months. And what we're worried about is that our healthcare system is at risk because as we speak, acute and critical care nurses are leaving their jobs in record numbers. We've never seen numbers like this before. We recently surveyed our nurses, and 92% of them think the pandemic has depleted them and will shorten their career, and more than half are thinking about leaving the nursing profession entirely. So we're here to talk with the public really about what we're seeing, this really alarming trend about nurses not being able to stay at the bedside, and we're asking for the public's help to try to end this pandemic as soon as possible so that we can keep nurses in the profession and make sure everybody can get the care they need when they need it.
Well, I have to say here in Mississippi, our health officer, Dr. Thomas Dobbs, has really been trying to do his part to make sure that the public realizes the impact that, of course, for one, those that are flooding into the hospitals, what it does for all of us. But talk about that, Amanda, for our audience out there. When the ERs and we hear about the hospitals being flooded with COVID patients, how does that impact the rest of us?
Yeah, and this is the part that we want to share directly with people, our experiences working in hospitals during these surges with the flood of patients. When there are so many patients that need care at one time, and you always hear about beds and ventilators, but truthfully, as we know, beds and ventilators don't mean anything unless you've got a nurse to take care of the patient that needs the bed and the ventilator. And so when we don't have beds, what we're really saying is we don't have staff to take care of those patients. And that's really what the shortage is we don't have enough staff. We didn't have enough staff before COVID started. And now that we have these large influxes of patients coming into our emergency departments and critical care areas, those patients are unable to get the care they need. It's just, that's the plain and simple truth. And so If a patient needs a life-saving treatment or a therapy and we don't have a nurse that is able to take care of a patient on a ventilator, that patient goes without. And we've seen stories of patients having to move states away and try to call several states to get care for things that are not related to COVID. So when you have a heart attack or any other unexpected healthcare emergency, all the hospital staff are trying to take care of all of the patients, and that means that there are not staff beds available to take care of you no matter what your healthcare need is.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things here. Even our governor, Amanda, has called this now the pandemic of the unvaccinated. If you had a message for the unvaccinated, not only in our state here in Mississippi, but also our radio audience around the country, what would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I mean, we understand that people have questions about vaccination. And as nurses, we respect people's individual healthcare decisions that differ from ours. It is our ethical duty to provide care to patients no matter what they choose for their health. What we're hoping is that if we're able to share our honest experiences directly with the public, talk about how we feel about vaccination, which is that we feel vaccines are safe and they're effective, and they're one of the only ways to make sure that you don't end up in the ICU as a patient, even if you do get COVID. So we want to share that information directly with the public, and we hope that because nurses have been a trusted profession for the last 19 years, that the public will trust us and listen to our stories and hear us when we say that we think they're safe and they're necessary and they are the way for us to get out of this pandemic. So we've set up a website called hearusout.com where we are sharing those stories, where we're sharing trustworthy information about vaccines, about how to have conversations with your loved ones if you are vaccinated but they are not yet vaccinated, so that you can be our partners in helping to end this pandemic.
And that's hearusout.com. We'll make sure that we link that up for our audience. Again, everyone, Amanda Bettencourt has been our guest. She's the president-elect of the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, sharing some valuable information for all of us. Amanda, really appreciate the work that you're doing in the organization, AACN, and looking forward to having you back on the program again.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, glad to do it. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live as part of our News You Can Use segment here at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Now let's go make today amazing. Take care.